Welcome to the 24 Frames podcast. I'm Jonathan Seaborn, the production director at KTTZ, and today we are talking Civil War. I'm joined by...
My name is Daniel Ballard. I'm a producer here at KTTZ.
Rob Weiner, popular culture librarian. I also teach for the Honors College, a class on superheroes and popular culture.
Tim Day, I'm a film professor here at Tech, also teach English, and I run a website as a film blogger, dayatthemovies.com.
All right, so initial spoiler-free reactions. What'd you think of it?
I liked it a whole lot.
Just loved it, every bit of it?
I mean, there are a couple problems that we'll get to later, but overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I liked it a whole lot, yes. I thought it was overall an excellent film.
I thought it was average. I thought it was a lot of fun if you don't think about it too much. But I think the movie had more problems than most Marvel movies have.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for an action movie. I didn't love it. Some of my disappointment may be skewed by the fact that all the reviews beforehand were saying that this was the best Marvel movie, that this was the best comic book movie, and that this was the best action movie. And I thought it didn't meet any of those three criteria. It was definitely ballooned the excitement from the critics before I went to see it, and I don't think it necessarily lived up to a lot of that. We are about to dive into the spoiler zone, so if you have not seen the movie, pause, go to the movie theater, and then roughly 2.5 hours later, hit play on your listening device again. You've been warned. So, yeah, what were your actual... What were some of your problems with it?
Boy, where would I start? There are a lot of plot holes. There are a lot of contrivances. I'll start with a couple of the biggest ones. One, there's, again, in a Marvel movie, no decent villain. Some people might argue that Zemo is a villain and a really good villain. I think he sort of hung around the edges and showed up in the third act. You have a huge contrivance in a precariously placed video camera on a wooded street, avenue, dirt road that the Starks are on, literally in the middle of nowhere. The car crashes at just the moment in which this video camera can capture it. Now, you could have had, the Starks are rich people, you could have had a video cam on the dash. You could have had a video camera in their car because he wanted it for security. But to have the car crash in front of a video camera, which becomes a very important key piece of evidence in this video to put Stark, Iron Man, and Captain America against each other. I also, I don't really understand how when Ant-Man turns into Giant Man, human physics no longer apply. So he works in slow motion because Attack of the 50-Foot Woman and any other movie with giant people. So suddenly Ant-Man can only move as if he's moving through water, just because he got bigger. I don't think larger people necessarily move at a 50% slow rate. So I never really understood when Captain America knew that Bucky killed the Starks. I don't think that piece of information was ever revealed until the moment he revealed it to Tony. So there's just several things like that in terms of plot that I struggled with. Also, apparently in Leipzig, no one goes to the airport. That airport where the big fight happened was totally deserted.
Yeah, they did throw out a line. It's a tiny line, but they evacuated the airport. They did have a line.
But why were they at the airport? They were at the airport to get to their plane, the Avengers plane.
Yeah, the Quinjet.
does the Quinjet have to park at airports now? I wouldn't couldn't
be
it park
where it
anywhere?
was.
Well, there are a number of Quinjets around.
Right.
That
So
Tony has put.
it just
in.
seems like we're at the airport having this battle because it could have been the Quinjet could have parked itself in a pasture. So why
That's dramatic effect, though.
Yeah, but I just don't understand why everyone ends up at that location at that time. It's never explained, other than we have to get to the plane. Oh, the plane's here. Oh, they're getting to the plane. Oh, there they are. Let's fight them. So there's no knowledge given to either group as to that the other group will be there. They're not tracking them. They just all sort of show up at the airport at the same time. So there's issues like that throughout the movie that the movie just asks you to sort of make these sort of leaps in the plot. And I think if you're having a good time in a movie and it's fun, you're willing to just sort of go, okay. But and it is fun. It's putting all your action figures in a blender and hitting frappe. I mean, it's fun to watch for a while, but to me, all the story, and again, I just finished a semester teaching screenwriting, so maybe I'm a little more partial to seeing plot gaps right now in story. But I just felt like the storytelling. It's rare that I would say a movie needed a second movie. Usually, Hunger Games and these other movies that split into two. This was 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I think they actually needed this movie to be two films and spread it out and offer a greater level of storytelling. Another thing I would say is that there's no stakes. Nobody dies. I mean, okay, so one guy ends up with artificial legs. I think he was running around in a suit anyway. One guy called it, instead of civil war, civil disagreement.
Yeah, I was telling Daniel earlier that because some of the they're fighting and you're thinking like, oh, what's going to happen? But then you have the lines like between Black Widow and Hawkeye where they're like, we're still friends, right? And then you'd hear people saying like that they're pulling punches and other things. And you did kind of feel like why are they, why were they actually fighting if there was no, I mean, I know that they were doing it to try to stop these other people, but as an audience member, you're like, is anything really on the line?
And at the end of the film, it's all sum zero, right? I mean, no one has changed. No characters have changed. Okay, Captain America's not in the Avengers anymore. He sort of is. So no.
It kind of changes to where it's just that the non-Avengers are the Avengers. I mean, Tony's left with two people, essentially. I mean, I guess he has Spider-Man, but Black Widow's left and everybody else is with Captain America, essentially. I just didn't see why, or going back to putting all your action figures in a thing. I was telling this to Daniel earlier too. I do agree that it maybe could have been two movies and that it felt really rushed, which of course it's going to feel rushed. You have like 15 or 20 characters in a film. One thing they did right, which was surprising because they didn't do this with already established characters, is they did a really good job with, I think, Black Panther and Spider-Man of
totally agree
adding them to the movie without being like, who are these guys? Why are they here? Like, they fit in perfectly, where that isn't necessarily true for people that already exist. Like, I don't know, Vision the whole time, I was like, hey, just kind of, it felt weird for Vision. I felt a little bit that way for Scarlet Witch outside of the fact that she had the guilt from that first scene. But like them, and I don't know, there were some of these characters that have always been side characters from the other films that they seemed less flushed out than Black Panther and Spider-Man did. And you could say for Spider-Man that there's cultural awareness in the sense that everybody knows enough about Spider-Man that you don't need it. But I don't think that's true for Black Panther.
No, but they needed to set it up. I think they had to focus on the Panther, and there was a lot of excitement about Black Panther being in the movie.
Yeah, I think they did an amazing job with Black Panther. What I meant is that they didn't. You have this little bit of times, or there was quite a bit of time spent with Black Panther in that movie, but you have these other characters that have been around for movies, and you felt less connected or less really understanding to what they were doing or why they would feel a certain way than you did with these characters that were just added.
I will say that the one thing Civil War did for me is that it made me look forward to a Black Panther movie especially with Ryan Coogler, who did Creed last year, who did Fruitvale Station. With Coogler behind that film, I'm actually looking forward to a Black Panther movie more than any other movie Marvel is coming out with in the future on their slate.
I'm looking forward to Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my favorite Marvel hero, and I've always loved Spider-Man. I love the story, and that I think that was the truest cinema Spider-Man we've seen to date.
Well, in the way that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko designed Spider-Man as the young kid or teenager, as it were. Here's what I think the movie got right, in addition to the Black Panther and Spider-Man. First of all, it is true in many ways to the comic in terms of the initial conflict between Iron Man and Captain America, and it's one of the best films. And I'm not going to include Batman versus Superman here, that actually gets the collateral damage question correct. In a world with superheroes, people are going to die because of the battles. Okay? The film addressed that. Maybe not perfectly, but in a way that I felt satisfied, because most superhero narratives don't address that at all. Okay? Because it's a buzz killer. And so I think that having that conflict and the idea that, some kind of governing body would be over superheroes is totally correct. Okay, that's what would happen. And Captain America, on the other side, being for freedom and liberty, being autonomous, very true to the character in that sense. Now, with that being said, you mentioned that it's 2 movies. Okay, the original Civil War series, with all the tie-ins, was over 200 comics and something like 15 graphic novels. Okay, that's a lot of story in terms of depth, and so I definitely see where Professor Day is coming from, in that it threw too much in there. Now, the other thing, though, when you're dealing with superhero movies, and I know, you talk about plot holes. Plot holes are going to exist. They're superheroes. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's just any movie in general almost. But
you have to suspend your belief on anything having any kind of logic, because it doesn't.
But I could have written in 5 minutes better ideas for some of the contrivances that exist on screen. It just seems like it's lazy. So, but I would say, going back to your point about it deals with consequences and it deals with sort of the fallout of being in a world of superheroes, does it? I mean, I feel
it
like...
attempts to anyway. There is no easy answer.
But there are no stakes and consequences in a Disney PG-13 movie. I mean, I don't want to get too far into spoilers or graphic novels, but nobody in this movie dies.
Well, in the original Civil War comic, people die.
Yeah, and no one dies here. So in the end, it's sort of like, oh, we disagreed, we had a fight. Sorry, everybody. Never mind, we were wrong, or we made a mistake. And it just at the end, no one's learned anything, no one's changed. It was just sort of like everybody shrugs their shoulders and moves on, and there's no consequences.
That's a good point.
To be fair, lots of people die. Just no one that you care about dies.
Yeah, no superheroes.
Yeah, no superhero die.
No superheroes.
Tons of people die at the beginning. And I think that's why I don't understand. I don't think they did a good job. I get what you're saying. I don't think they did a good job of making you understand why Captain America feels the way he does. Because as far as I'm concerned, Tony Stark's position makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
I think that Captain America...
position.
I don't think it...
Although it wasn't as fleshed out as it is in the comics.
And I get what you're saying. Yeah, like in that idea of it. But they didn't necessarily make it feel that way in the movies. And you would think that he would understand that, look at all the collateral damage, having some sort of... to make the general populace feel safe, having some sort of, even if it's just for show, regulation or someone that you answer to or whatever would make sense. And this whole thing is based on the fact that he's trying to protect Bucky. Yet he is, like, the point of "I was your friend too" from Captain America is valid and almost like negates the fact that he's willing to do all this stuff for this one guy, and he would be willing to disregard everyone else that he cares about. If it didn't feel like that there was one person that could say, "Captain, we should sit down and try to actually fit," everybody. It seems like if even the Carters were like, "Captain, you're wrong about Bucky," that he would have been like, "No, screw you. No one on Earth can convince me otherwise." And I think that makes Captain America dangerous. I think that person would need to be checked if they have this.
Well, and that was the idea behind checking him. But it does express Cap's loyalty to Bucky, which I think is an important thing about friendship. But like you said, Tony Stark was his friend too. But Cap has always been suspicious of Tony Stark, like in Age of Ultron, where Tony just made Ultron without the consequences, and then made, the character that became the Vision. But the Vision is controlled by.
I would say that
Infinity
Tony Stark
Gems,
has faced
so.
more consequences for his actions than Captain America throughout the MCU.
I would agree with that.
I mean, it weighs on him. Captain America doesn't seem to be bothered by it.
And I would say, we're talking about collateral damage and consequences. I agree, there is collateral damage to the movie. There's a lot of people that die. But the superheroes don't really face any consequences. And again, this is a simple, subtle way. At the end of the movie, Captain America goes to the underwater prison in the middle of the ocean and breaks everybody out. If they could have just ended the movie showing those people in prison, showing that, yes, there are consequences. They were captured. They are being held accountable. And some line where Captain America is, giving that note or whatever to Tony Stark, giving that message to Tony Stark, and it simply said, and he gets in the jet to go get them, and we go, cut to black. But that the movie ends with people in jail. But the movie isn't even willing to do that. It's so happy ending oriented that we have to see them get out of jail before the movie ends. And I think if even the next film, the next Marvel film, could have shown them getting out of jail, could have that at least as an audience we're sitting between now and the next movie thinking, oh my gosh, those heroes are sitting in prison in the middle of the ocean, because then there would have been consequences. But no one faces, for all of the talk of collateral damage and people dying in a world full of superheroes where bad things happen, in the end nobody pays a price. Nobody.
What did you think of it, Daniel? You've been
I've just been listening. I think that there are some prices because all of those people are now fugitives. They can't. I mean, like Hawkeye, for example. I don't know if he can go back and see his family. Ant-Man's used to it. He's used to like being against the law, so that's not a big deal for him. But for some of those people, I mean, they can't just go about their lives the way they were. That's at least some. I mean, it's not as much as if they were still in jail, but it is at least some consequences. Cap and all of those guys are now fugitives.
That's right.
Especially being broken out. That's not.
Let's look at this realistically, though. Tony Stark was bankrolling all of them. Where do these people live, and how do they eat without Tony Stark's money? Or a government. Before Tony Stark, there was government agencies with S.H.I.E.L.D. as far as like Black Widow and Hawkeye were concerned. But now these people...
Keep in mind, the one factor that is not talked about is Nick Fury. And Nick Fury will be on Cap's side.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. So Nick Fury, Cap and Fury have a very tight relationship. Much more so, I think, than Tony and Fury. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Fury that was giving them the safe haven.
Why was Fury not in this movie?
That's a really good question.
Because they don't want to pay Samuel L. Jackson, just the same reason that ScarJo wasn't in the movie either. Paychecks. Or they don't want to be in the franchise anymore.
ScarJo? Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, she was in it.
Yeah,
she
she was
was
in
in
it a
good time.
bunch.
Yeah.
No, I'm not thinking. I'm sorry, Gwyneth Paltrow, not Scarlett.
Oh,
Gwyneth
yeah.
Paltrow, as Pepper Potts.
I gotcha.
They cost too much money.
As if Downey doesn't at this point.
Yeah, but you can't do that story without Downey.
No, you cannot.
They
do
can
that
do it
story
without
without
Pepper
Downey.
Potts. They can do it without Nick Fury. But even at the end, Tony Stark still put the Senator on hold. He knew Captain America was breaking those guys out. Oh, sorry, I'm going to have the hold button. So even even Cap and Iron Man have already sort of healed up. So the idea that Tony could still bankroll them even as fugitives, why not? I mean, he knows Captain America's breaking those guys out. He isn't going to try and stop them. At the end of the film, there's no rift anymore. Everything's like, oh, sorry.
I wouldn't
okay.
say that it's 100% healed, but it definitely is already on the mending side of things.
Because I feel like we're not good, like we're not friends, but if you, like, we're still to the level of, if you need me, I'll help you. I mean, because that's basically what that letter is about, is like, hey, I know we're not in a good place right now, but if you need me, know that I'll still be there. But I don't think they're good.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Ballard on that. And to me, that is a very nice, hopeful ending. That, Cap is still there for Iron Man, or if necessary. That they don't hate each other. Which was never the case, even in the comics, while they're, beating each other to a pulp. They still didn't hate each other. There's still some kind of bond between the two of them. And for me, and I know that that's a very Disney-esque ending, but that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I guess one of the things, I don't think they did a good job of showing you why they had to fight. And I know that it's an action movie and that it would be dumb if it was just guys in a room talking, but it seemed like Iron Man and Captain America never spent more than like a 45-second conversation trying to figure out why the other person felt the way they did.
There was the conversation with the pens. There was the conversation in the conference room with the pens, and I think that was really the only sit-down conversation that the two of them had.
Yeah, and I know that they had like the meeting with everybody in like the kitchen or whatever.
At the beginning, yeah.
But it seems like there was no real, like no one was trying to flush out an argument for explaining in detail why they felt one way or the other.
No, because that would be boring in an action movie.
And I agree. I get that it's an action movie, but I also felt that the whole time I was like, why won't this other guy just listen? They've worked together for so long and they're friends that they will resort to violence against each other before with minimal attempt at conversation.
But that's a basic plot point for
and like I said, I get it's an action movie. It would be really boring if it was an hour of Tony Stark and Captain Steve Rogers having a debate over a table and then finally being like, all right then. Now, put your hat on and I'll put my suit on and let's go outside.
Here's a point where I agree with Professor Day that I thought the movie was pretty terrible at, although it's not what you think. The cinematography I thought was just atrocious. I am so sick and tired of shot cuts, shaky cams, and you don't have to have an action scene that you can't see. Yeah. Okay, a fight scene, and half the time you didn't know whether you were coming or going, and I just thought...
Chaos cinematography.
Yeah, I hate that. I think you want to talk about being sloppy? They're attempting not to be sloppy. I know it's complicated to do, but to me that's sloppy. To me, you're treating your audience like idiots. It's not exciting. If anything, it's nauseating. And that's one thing I noticed early on about this film that I did not like.
Also, during the big fight scene, I know I said that they did Spider-Man right, and I believe that 100%. I love Spider-Man. He was the best part of the fight scene, hearing all the quips and stuff. But a lot of times when he's swinging into stuff and they're at that airport, what is he swinging on? Like he's just swinging in, and there's no buildings. They're at an airport. Like what is he?
Yeah,
What is his
that
web
a
attached
Spider-Man
to?
thing though? Like, what is he almost ever actually grabbing on?
Well, I mean, at least
But if he's in a
down,
city,
yeah.
skyscrapers.
Yeah,
Doing
skyscrapers.
it from the side that you can't.
I didn't even think of that. My suspension of disbelief was
Yeah.
so excited
Ki-
about having Spider-Man in there, you know, and having them get him right for once,
Yeah.
where he actually looks the age he's playing and he acts like it. Not to mention an absolutely gorgeous Aunt May, who's older than me, mind you. You know, or a hip Aunt May. It's time for that.
Yeah.
Can anybody explain why Giant Man moves like he's in water?
That's just the way Giant Man moves. I mean,
But-
I was really excited about
but
seeing
why?
Giant Man.
I don't understand. Like, that's
Because of the density, I think that's how they explain it, you know. And he has a hard time if he stays in that state for very long. He'll get really sick. And
yes,
could
and that was
possibly die.
explained. I get that. I just don't understand why he moves like he's in water. It just seems like human physics. And if there would have been a line like, you know, while he's Giant Man, like, I hate that this suit makes me move so slowly. I mean, like anything that would have even sort of recognized, yes, we're doing the trope of giant people walk slowly and act slowly and do, you know, lumber around. If just a single, it would have been a funny line. Then you're like, okay, explained.
I mean, I don't know. There may be a scientific explanation for some of that. I don't know. It could be to do with density or just the amount of energy it takes to move that amount of weight at that size. I don't know. I thought it looked silly, like him moving really slow, but it didn't bother me.
Yeah,
at least
it
not in
didn't
the way
bother
it seemed
me.
to bother you.
thought
And
that.
I actually liked Ant-Man as well. Like I said, I think that my favorite parts of that giant fight scene were Ant-Man and Spider-Man. Seeing those two people kind of geek out on the fact that they're a part of it was funny.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
that that was the best part of it, and that because of the fact that it kept me from thinking too hard about the fact it's like I'm not really sure I'm sold on why these guys are fighting, and the fact that there's the feeling of no one's gonna die here.
And that there are no collateral damage because we've cleared the airport.
Yeah,
And why did we clear the airport? Because we know we're going to fight. Because we already know before we clear the airport that we're going to have this giant fight. Because I don't
there's
think
a
they go
chance
in
that it's
thinking
gonna
they're going to fight.
well, I think that
They,
it seemed as if I can't remember. There may have been like a throwaway line. I saw it the day it came out, so now it's a couple days old in my head. But I think that Tony Stark somehow knew that that's where they were going. Like he had mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Right.
went
Yeah,
there.
I think
and so
so.
they've cleared the airport because they already know they're going to do this giant battle.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, not necessarily no, but there's a good chance it's going to come to blows.
Yeah, I think that the initial plan probably wasn't to fight. And
I mean, and he did try to talk. When he first got there, he tried to talk, and then it was quickly, oh, this isn't going to work. But
yeah, but it's Captain America that decides to fight.
I'm just saying that it is quickly revealed that it's not going to be able to.
yeah,
just
I know
talk
that
out.
Captain America maybe has like the moral high ground. Captain America to me was the bad guy in this film. I was on Iron Man's side the whole time. I didn't get why. I get that that this guy is innocent and he's trying to protect him, but I think that there are better ways that he could have handled that without creating the rift.
And I guess going back to the airport thing, and I'll drop it. I would say that thematically, if the whole movie is about there are consequences and collateral damage in a world full of superheroes, okay, we are evacuating the airport. The airport is being evacuated. But I think still showing people, even if no one dies, in danger, even fleeing the airport, that we could see. But we get there and it's abandoned. There's not one person, even in a place that would be evacuated. There would be. I felt like
They did clear the airport out.
I thought that whole fight scene existed in a vacuum.
They did clear the airport out quicker than possible. But once again, I mean, it's a movie. And
And I think it would have been a reminder to to the people watching, there are people in danger with superheroes. There are consequences. That's look, these people are running away from these superheroes that are trying to do battle. I mean, I think that would have been a better image.
Yeah, I think the only reason they chose Airport probably was Airport is more visually interesting than Field, empty field.
I have a thing I'm going to play devil's advocate on. Something that Tim said at the beginning. When you were talking about the camera being placed on the road.
Yes.
I think it was placed there by Hydra, and because we've seen how skilled Bucky is at these, murders or whatever.
Okay.
I think it was planned to take place exactly there. That was the plan. He was going to run them off the road right there.
At that exact location.
Yes, and we've seen him, flip cars over and not get hit by them number of times. So I don't think it's too far to say, that he could make that happen right at that point.
Yeah, I just
and
assumed
Hydra would want to make sure that it went down the way it needed to go down.
So you're suggesting he gauged his own journey on a motorcycle to engage the car at just the moment where they will wreck in front of that particular tree so it will be recorded. That's fine. You could have said that. But otherwise, but that's a leap. See, that's a leap they're asking you to make.
I don't think seeing the things we've seen him do when he was under their, in the Winter Soldier movie, seeing
Right.
the things that you saw him do and the way he would plan shots so that things would happen and he knew exactly where to be so that he wasn't going to get, smashed by a truck. I don't think it's too far a leap to go there.
But so you're saying it's Hydra's camera.
Yes.
I would have never have come to that conclusion based on the movie that I
think
saw.
it's Hydra's camera.
I
But
assume
that's a leap. That's a place of logic that you're making. The movie didn't ask you to
Hydra's
make
the
it.
one that has the tape.
Yeah, Hydra's got the tape, so.
It wasn't like it was
But
public record. that
Maybe
they
it
got.
was. Someone else suggested to me that it was just someone's house and it was a security camera on a fence on someone's ranch in the middle of nowhere. That it was just security footage that Hydra then got access to. They went and grabbed it. They went and took it. They went and stole it. That it
Plus-
wasn't a Hydra placed camera. That it was just.
Plus, we don't know that Hydra's
Maybe
the
it
only
was
one
an
that.
ATM out in the middle of a road. I don't know.
I assumed that it was security camera on a gate. A lot of those houses out in the countries that have long trails, their gates are way far away from their house. That's what it seemed like to me. And you don't know that Hydra is the only one that has that footage. We know that Captain America is aware of it, so it would be easy to make the leap of logic that Captain America had seen the tape before.
But it's
if
a
he
leap.
was
and
aware.
Nick Fury probably showed it to him.
Yeah, and if Nick Fury had the tape, let's say that it was, it wouldn't be hard to believe that both Hydra and Fury and these other people had tape, especially if it was just an individual
But
citizen.
we don't know that Captain America's seen it until he tells us he's seen it. Until he tells Tony he's seen it.
No, I know that, but I'm saying that knowing that means that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just that could be someone else's tape that Hydra had
Ryan,
access to.
I don't know that that's the first time. I don't know that that's not the first. I think that's the first time that Cap has seen the footage. I think he was
At the end of the movie?
Yeah, I think that is the first time he's seeing the footage. I think he was aware that Bucky was.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it was for sure not the first time, but we don't know that it wasn't the first time.
But he knows that Bucky killed the Stark.
Yes, he does.
How does he know?
I'm sure
because,
that Fury briefed
yeah,
him.
yeah.
But it's
there's-
never
there's no-
that's never shared to us, the audience.
It had to have happened. Here's the thing, though. Think about that, because it had to have happened after Winter Soldier. Because as far as Captain America well, I guess he could have. No. Because in Winter Soldier, when he figures out that Winter Soldier is Bucky, his mind's blown. He's like, Bucky, what? So it had to have happened. He had
After
to have
Winter Soldier.
He had to have found out about the Stark's death after Winter Soldier.
Correct.
That's been a couple years.
No, I know. I'm just
He's
saying
been
that.
searching for Bucky that whole time. There's a good chance he would come across.
I'm not saying that adds any sort of plot hole. I'm saying that earlier we had said, when did Captain America find out? That puts it somewhere on the timeline of after that film. It had to have happened after that film because he didn't know that this person existed until then.
And I guess that's where I fall. The movie is fun. I gave it a mild recommend. But all these things sort of we're talking about, for me, add up. That, you know, not only is it not the best Marvel movie, I don't even think it's somewhere probably in the middle for me. It's definitely not the. I think it's the worst of the 3 Captain America movies. So I would put First Avenger and Winter Soldier above this movie. So just in terms of ranking, but that's because it was extra long and yet managed to create more questions in my mind than offer answers.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, okay? I know you were saying Cap's a villain. I totally understand Captain America's point of view because, and I agree with you. I think Winter Soldier is a better film, but Shield deceived them. Everything Cap thought he knew about the way the world worked in politics doesn't. So Captain America is not going to put his faith into a governing body. Been there, done that. He was already an agent of Shield, and they turned against him in the Winter Soldier.
He didn't want to do when he first went to work for Shield. It wasn't like he was I'm working for Shield.
No, but he accepted it, and you know, Fury convinced him and took him into confidence. So for Captain America to go against the UN initiative overseeing superheroes, for me, I totally get that.
I have no problem with his objection, like him being not for it. I don't expect him to jump up and high five and be the first one to sign. I'm saying that he is the one that I think creates the rift. He is the one that drives the team apart. He is the driving force behind that.
Mm-hmm.
But
so you say he's the villain.
I don't mean the villain in the sense of like he's the big bad of the film. I mean, I think he is at fault.
There isn't a big bad.
No,
No.
there isn't a big bad,
No.
except for if you
Which,
say Zemo.
personally, when they went to the compound that had the 4 or the 5 other Winter Soldiers and they didn't end up fighting them, I was pleasantly surprised.
I was surprised by that too.
Because I just was like, okay, I mean, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be fine. It'll probably be interesting to watch. But like, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to a big fight with these 5.
Yeah, I was relieved because I knew
I
that
thought it was awesome. I thought that was an awesome. I mean, I know it's not a huge twist, but I really appreciated the fact that we're not gonna fight those guys that we've been building up this whole time. That's kind of cool. I like that.
And he killed him anyway.
yeah.
Made sure they'd never
So what did you
rise.
guys think of Zemo as a character? As a villain, question mark.
He was a good strategist. And again, it was all for vengeance. It was all because his family had been killed. On the other hand, knowing the comic Baron Zemo, and he, was the initial cause of Captain America, going into ice and the death of Bucky in quotes. He's a baddie in the Marvel Universe, and he was a little more subdued in this role.
Well, he's just a guy.
Well, and I
And
really
Who had a vendetta.
I appreciate the
Yeah.
fact that he knew he couldn't beat them in a fight, and so he had to come up with another way around it. I thought that was, I don't
Which
know, I
is
thought
pretty
that was
brilliant in
interesting.
its own way.
Sure, he's a guy that we know is a soldier or a former soldier or some sort. He was in the military. How can he? But apparently he has unlimited resources from. He can build giant EMPs that he has in his hotel room. He has access to travel the globe. So, where are all his resources? How is he getting funding? How does this guy exist and is able to create what he's able to create? Never addressed. Just he's a guy and he can do these things.
I don't think it has to be addressed, though, necessarily. I mean, again, we're talking superhero film. Logic doesn't apply.
Yeah, but at
Neither does
least
traditional
I'm not
screenwriting.
saying it has to be logical. It just has to offer an explanation. How does this guy have access to an EMP? How does this guy, how is he able to get all of the things he's getting, all the intel he's gathering? It's like, how is he able to drop into the world of Mission Impossible and get face, masks to make himself look like Bucky. How? How is he able to do all? It's just like, again, it's a throwaway line of, oh, it turns out he had all this face altering equipment in his hotel room. What? Did he get that from Tom Cruise?
Well, it's not like he was that far off from looking like him anyway.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean,
But
physically, they are
Yeah.
similar, so it would just take a little bit to be on a grainy camera to look like him. I mean,
But the giant EMP,
he had
globetrotting,
resources.
he did?
That
Well, I mean,
didn't bother
yeah,
me. I
that-
never thought about
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I thought.
I guess I
what
just.
what a great
thinking about
strategist he
rich
was.
people that exist who are also super smart in the Marvel universe is not. I mean, there are plenty of them. And so
Yes,
that-
there are.
So,
But at the end, it just sort of played it off as a guy that lost his family. And so if he's a normal guy and you're going to make him to be this character, he's just like us, and he's sort of this sort of character you want to relate to, then he can't have both. Either he's a rich guy that has resources and can do all these things, or he's this sort of sad sack we have sentimental value for at the end when Black Panther, is able to, foil him. And of course, it's also the scene where the villain is going to sit down and reveal all of his truths.
well, I think that he did that because he was, in his mind, he was about to kill himself. So
I don't think he actually was.
You don't think it was?
I think what was, if he was actually about to kill himself, what was the point of the end where the guy's like, you failed, and he's like, did I?
Well, because he caused a rift between the superheroes.
Then why would he
he
kill
didn't
himself?
fail.
He did complete
caused
what he
the
was.
rift.
Yeah, but we don't know that rift obviously isn't sticking. So he would have, I mean, I don't know. It just, to me, it was like, is there more to his?
No, I don't think so.
plan?
I think he was saying
Because he says, I didn't fail, and then you instantly see Captain America reading the letter, Iron Man reading the letter and Captain America breaking the people out of prison. So you're, as a viewer, being told, did I fail? I created this rift, and then it's like, oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah, but except for I still see at the end of the movie they're not friends. They're
not
it's-
friends.
I'm not saying they're friends, but they're not enemies.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would say that they're on the mending side of things.
And again, if you want to make him a rich madman that wants to have superheroes go at each other's throats, fine, do that. If you want to make him the grieving father and husband, then have a scene where he is in a partnership with a member of Hydra that he doesn't really want to he sort of has this sort of, this is a means to an end. And so they can give me the resources. They can help me gather all of the things. I mean, it's a single scene that you could sort of make this guy a little bit more tortured, but you don't want to show that at the beginning. You want to make him a villain that sort of, plays around the edges of the movie till the final act. I again, and every Marvel movie, including even the ones with Loki, I think, every Marvel movie, they have yet to establish a decent villain with clear motives, clear strategies, that is nefarious. I just feel like...
No, the Red Skull was that.
okay,
in
I would
Captain
concede
America.
that. I would concede in Captain America, the First Avenger, Red Skull is a good villain.
Definitely.
But the rest of the movies, and there's 12 more.
Actually, they've got movies scheduled till 2030.
Yeah,
We
but I'm
just don't
talking
know
about
about 'em yet.
already. I mean, this is the 13th film, so that's 12 other movies that MCU has made that, their villains are just forgettable.
Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there.
We're gonna wrap it up with us not really agreeing, but being willing to come back and help each other out some other time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be there if you need me.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe X-Men?
Yeah. We could come back for Apocalypse and see if the room is still divided, or if it's for or against the movie.
I was gonna say it really is kind of just like this side of the room and that side of the room.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't. And what we can do is we can give it our number out of 10 rating. I didn't hate it. I don't think it deserves the praise that it got. I don't think that it deserves to be the people saying that it's the best, like I said, best superhero movie, best Marvel movie, and best action movie. I don't think it's any of those three things. It is a fun action movie, and it isn't bad, but it's not the best Marvel movie. I would give it a like 5.5 out of 10 or so. It's on the enjoyable side. It's not bad.
That is super low, in my opinion.
Really? I don't know. Maybe a 6 at most. At 5.5 to 6-ish. And I think that's generous. Like, you have to be a perfect film to be 10.
Well, I know.
And
I'm not
8 or
saying- I'm not-
9 are like near perfect. Maybe I'm being too harsh on
Yeah,
my.
I think your scale.
my
Well,
scale.
and I don't think it's fair to hold other people's opinions against the movie. You should look at the movie as what the
Yes,
movie
but it's
is.
hard to be. Yeah, I agree. It is hard to objectively go into a film though when you've had months of nothing but
But that's the Disney machine.
extreme positive press.
It will
is
have
the
that
Disney
press until the
machine.
next Marvel movie comes out, and then that Marvel movie will be the best Marvel movie ever made. Because, I mean, there's a
I know, the
lawsuit
next
right
one's
now
Doctor
against
Strange,
suspicion of Disney paying film critics to hate other superhero movies not in MCU. That was just released today. There's a lawsuit going against Disney that there are people surmising that they're paying film critics to hate other movies not Disney.
That
So
doesn't surprise me.
The Disney machine, part of what you're hearing is that giant machine pushing their movie.
It was also a pretty enjoyable movie, in my opinion.
What's
It
your
was
score?
fun. What is your rating?
I would say like a 7.5 to an 8. Like for me it was I really enjoyed their interactions with them. I liked Spider-Man, I liked Ant-Man. Black Panther was awesome, and I am really excited about the idea of a Black Panther movie. Like I want to see that. So I mean, it did what I wanted it to do. It was enjoyable and fun to watch for 2.5 hours. So
I'm with Mr. Ballard. I'd give it about an 8. Very much looking forward to the Black Panther. Hope they do that well. I'm looking forward to Captain Marvel too. But is it as good as Spider-Man 2, which I still think is probably the best superhero movie of all time? Or one of them, or Dark Knight, or the Tim Burton first Batman movie? No, it's not. Or even Winter Soldier, for that matter. But it's pretty darn good.
I'm kind of with you, Jonathan. I gave it a 6. You can look for my full review at datethemovies.com. I gave it a 6, which may seem low on a 10 scale, but if it was on a 5 scale, it'd be 3 out of 5 stars. So it's a mild recommend. I mean, a 6 for me.
It's about a
even,
B minus.
Even on Rotten Tomatoes, anything is considered, quote, fresh if it has a 6 or better on any scale.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting a fresh or mild recommend for the fun factor. There is a lot of action. It blows up real good. It's fun, but and here's the thing: I totally understand why someone like Daniel, someone like Rob likes it more than me. It's probably just a matter of how willing you are to make leaps or to forgive issues or to not see them or just disagree on how things are being portrayed. I understand why people like it more than me. I get it. It just wasn't for me. And to quote a friend of all of ours, Paul Hunton, the superhero movies are it's beginning to wear thin for me. The whole genre is beginning to become so template. It's just, I kind of want another movie to come down the pike that's going to burst the bubble and slow this train, because I just feel like we're in for more of the same. But so it's good, it's fun. It's not much more than that. It's somewhere in the middle of all those superhero movies. I wouldn't say it's the best. I wouldn't say it's the worst.
Yeah, and it does start with a bang, and the action stays up there the whole time. I mean, there's never a dull moment. Someone's swinging a fist pretty much from the first scene to the
More
last scene.
globetrotting than a James Bond movie.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
jump
there
around a
is.
lot.
one thing I
And
would like
it's
to mention.
not nice, exotic scenes either.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to mention, because I forgot to earlier, while I do agree that Vision was given the short shrift on like story, that fight between him and Hawkeye, where there was like no contest. It was awesome. Like Hawkeye just had no chance against Vision, and like he kept punching him and just becoming.
And I know this was just a comedic little thing to do, but it was funny to see Vision walking around in like a sweater and button-up shirt, that like, or like a polo shirt. Like it was funny to see him dressed. Other than that, I felt like his story. I like the character of Vision, but the whole time you're like, you're not really telling me why
Anything
he feels
about
away or why he's doing anything. But we could dive into a whole nother 30 minutes if we start up again. But so thank all you guys for coming. Visit dayatthemovie.com. Check out, Rob has a few books. You have a new one that's about to come out, correct?
Yes, it actually just came out, called Marvel Comics into Film.
There you go. And then Daniel and I, of course, work at this is part of KTTZ. So check out the show 24 Frames Saturdays at 9 o'clock at pbs.org or on KTTZ, and go like us on Facebook at 24 Frames. Thank you very much.